4 o'clock for Fox 35 News Plus as we break down the top stories of the day and speak with our reporters about what they've been working on as well. So we've got a lot to work on here in the Fox 35 newsroom, so we're going to step aside for a little bit, but we will see you at 2 or sooner if need be. Thanks for joining us this morning on Fox 35 News Plus.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you. Welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We appreciate you joining us. It has been a busy day and certainly have a lot to get to in this next hour, so we want to let you know some of what we have coming up in the show today. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to show you our first look at some body camera video and also a little bit of dash camera video that shows Titusville police shooting a suspect, a 25-year-old man, back in February. His mother has been outspoken, wanting to see this video, wanting it released for the past few months. Wasn't able to happen until this week because of an ongoing investigation. The officers have been cleared in that, and so getting our first look publicly at that body camera video. We'll have more on that in just a little bit. Coming up in our Tampa connection, surgeons saving a girl's hand after a shark attack. Crazy story there out of the Bay Area. We'll have that coming up in just a little bit when we check in with our friends at Fox 13 Tampa. But we begin today with organizers preparing for these No Kings Day protests across Florida and across the country. Let me show you this map here where you can see 1,500 cities across the U.S. with planned protests, including a number of them right here in Florida. As we zoom in a little bit, a number of them all across the state, including in our areas here. Organizers in Brevard County, in fact, expect 2,000 people for a rally that they have planned in Cocoa. Meanwhile, all of this as law enforcement and even the Attorney General yesterday, a warning of consequences for any violence or destruction that comes out of such rallies. Those warnings coming in the aftermath of protests that turned in many cases into riots in Southern California. And now this afternoon, just a little bit ago, had the chance to speak with Michael Kniant, who is a spokesperson for the Brevard No Kings Day of Resistance, who told us they condemn any violence and want to see a big crowd out there, but a peaceful crowd out in Cocoa tomorrow for their protest.
I've been involved with a group in Brevard County, known informally as the Brevard Progressive Alliance. It's an organization of several individual groups who are all pro-democracy groups and public interest groups who are concerned primarily with the defense of democracy. And especially since the Trump inauguration in January, we've been concerned with the defense of democracy against against Donald Trump's authoritarian ambitions, quite frankly. We've had 3 major demonstrations since the beginning of April, on April 5th, the 19th, and May 1st. Each one has drawn a larger number of people and more enthusiastic response than the event before it. We fully expect that tomorrow, on June 14th, that event will exceed all expectations. We have a firm RSVP count as of Wednesday night of 2,000 people. Based on how much the actual attendance has exceeded prior expectations of the 3 previous events, we fully expect to have a lot more than 2,000.
Michael, why are you expecting that many people? That's a big crowd.
Certainly is.
Why do you think that many people will show up to this?
Well, on at least a couple of occasions, we expected about 500 to 600 people. What we got was more like 10,000 to 1,100. In one case, we had as many as 1,300 show up, which is several hundred more than we expected at the time. On a very, how should I say, a very informal basis, we're seeing enthusiasm that we haven't seen before. I think it's not a stretch to assume that we're going to have a lot more than the official tally thus far. I'll add one other point. I think a lot of people are very clued into what Trump has been doing recently in the militarization of Los Angeles, sending in the military to create a crisis that did not exist before. People of all kinds, all political persuasions, all backgrounds, are sitting up and paying attention and realizing what he's up to. He is attempting nothing less than the authoritarian takeover of the federal government. This is very serious stuff.
What can people expect at the event tomorrow in Brevard County?
Well, a whole lot of enthusiasm, a lot of flag waving, a lot of sign bearing, chanting and singing, a lot of high energy. And there will be street theater as well to dramatize the issues in play. All 4 corners of the intersection, US 1 at State Road 520 in Cocoa, will be clogged with people. People lined up all up and down the streets. Probably more people than we can safely contain. We expect that degree of enthusiasm.
Are you concerned about it getting out of hand at all?
I have heard rumors that there are those who will try to infiltrate the group, try to cause trouble in an effort to discredit us. I've heard rumors, unsubstantiated rumors at most, that there may even be violence. Let me be very clear about this. We will tolerate no violence whatsoever. Anyone who perpetrates violence at our event is not part of our group, does not support our cause or our mission. They are infiltrators who are trying to discredit us and cause trouble. Anyone who perpetrates violence, we will call the police and we will have them forcibly removed if necessary. This is strictly a peaceful demonstration. We intend to keep it that way.
Michael, to that end, we heard yesterday from the Brevard County Sheriff, who had some pretty strong words about making sure that things stayed peaceful. I'd like to play a quick soundbite for you and get your reaction to it if I can.
All right.
If you let it turn violent, whoo, you do not want to do that in Brevard County. If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
Michael, those comments have been getting a lot of attention. I'm curious what you make of that in this climate.
I take Sheriff Ivey's point. I agree with his sentiments. There ought to be no tolerance of violence, and I can assure him and the general public there will be no trouble from us. We're on the same page.
What do you want people to know about the point that your group is hoping to make with this this event tomorrow, this protest?
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth noting that tomorrow, June 14th, will be Donald Trump's birthday. He intends to throw a grand and glorious birthday party for himself in the form of a military parade right downtown Washington, D.C. The whole point is to assuage his enormous ego and to convey the illusion of imperial power. Donald Trump literally seems to think that he's a king. We're gathered tomorrow, along with millions of other Americans in all 50 states across the country, to tell him that America has no kings. Donald Trump is no king, and we are not his subjects. America is a constitutional democracy. It is not a monarchy, and we will not stand for any kind of autocratic behavior from a president who behaves like this.
And again, those protests not just across Florida, but across the country. And we will have live streaming coverage, special live streaming coverage starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow here on Fox Local. I'll be inside, being here all day with you as we track the impacts of those protests here in Florida, across the country, and also some of those events in Washington, D.C. On Flag Day. We are going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. That's all right. We're about 10 seconds out, and we'll come straight to you. Welcome back into Florida Live on this Friday afternoon. We appreciate you joining us live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is time now for our Tampa Connection, and for that, we're going to go to Fox 13 Tampa Bay, and news anchor Linda Hurtado joining us this afternoon. And Linda, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection.
Yeah, hi Garrett. We're going to start with a shark attack and a young lady in our area now in surgery. In fact, a 9-year-old girl recovering at Tampa General Hospital after being bitten by a shark in southwest Florida. Lee Lendl was snorkeling with her family in Boca Grande when the shark bit her, nearly severing her hand. A nearby construction crew rushed to help, pulling her from the water, and they called 911. She was airlifted to TGH, where she underwent an hours-long surgery involving some bone reconstruction, artery grafts from her leg, and tendon and nerve repair. So Leah's mother posted on social media saying doctors were able to restore blood flow to the entire hand and all her fingers. That's good news. And she's now able to move 2 of them. Fox 13 spoke with 2 surgeons about the procedure that saved her hand and the long recovery ahead.
The structures of the hand are like a very finely tuned marionette system. An injury like a shark bite is not a nice, clean surgical incision. It's actually not only a cutting, but it's also a crushing and a tearing injury. So, which is gruesome to think about.
Patient's going to require several months of therapy. It's going to take a team of therapists months, if not years, to regain as much function as possible. Her being a child is going to be in her benefit for this. It's going to help with her ability to work with rehab and also her overall outlook with this injury.
And that's good to hear. So this was the first reported shark bite in Boca Grande since 2019, and experts say the area is known for seasonal shark activity, especially during tarpon fishing season. Boy, we hear about these incidents of road rage. We've got one to tell you about that happened. Hillsborough County deputies say road rage led to a shootout on a busy intersection in the middle of the day. Video released by the sheriff's office shows part of the encounter in Brandon yesterday. Someone in the far left lane appears to throw some type of liquid out of the car toward targeting someone next to them as they stopped at a red light. Deputies then tell us that 21 Aiden Richards fired multiple shots at that other vehicle. Well, that's when the other driver pulled out their own gun and returned fire, hitting Richards. Richards went to the hospital with injuries to her lower body. She faces charges of attempted second-degree murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and shooting at a vehicle. In a statement, Sheriff Chad Chronister, this is Hillsborough Sheriff, said this kind of behavior is dangerous, irresponsible, and could have easily ended up in tragedy. Using a firearm because you're angry behind the wheel is beyond unacceptable. We will not allow this kind of chaos on our roadways, and those who choose violence will face serious consequences. Investigators have not said what exactly led to the violent encounter, only calling it a road rage incident. All right, let's end with some positive news. It's going to be an exciting weekend here in Tampa for our women's professional soccer team as they play for a championship. Tampa Bay Sun FC practiced this morning ahead of tomorrow night's inaugural USL Super League Championship game against Fort Lauderdale United FC. The Sun made it to the finals by beating Dallas last weekend by a score of 2-1. A win tomorrow would bring the first ever professional women's trophy home to the Tampa Bay area. Everyone on the team, from the players to the front office, knows the significance of tomorrow night's matchup.
It's just really important just for not just women's soccer, but women's athletics, to be able to play in front of our fans and for the little girls in the stands. So we take it super seriously, and that's why we want to put on a good show and we want to bring the trophy home.
There are no words to describe what's happening in the sense that it's a special moment, it's unique, it's historic, it's exciting, the energy is here. To be able to launch a team for the first time, which not many people can launch a professional sports team for the first time.
You recruited them.
Yeah, the sporting technical staff, 24 professional athletes out of the gate. That'll be the first and last time we ever do an entire new team, but we got the mix correct. As we can see, we're in the championship game tomorrow. But yeah, it's just a really incredible, exciting time to be able to bring a team that's for the community and named by the community, and then have the community come out tomorrow, which we're almost trending with the sellout, to be able to support them as they are on their run for a Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so that championship game kicks off tomorrow at 7:30 at the Riverfront Park off North Boulevard, across the street from Armature Works. Game is nearly sold out. Parking's pretty easy there too. I've been to a couple of the soccer games there, so let's go, Sun. Bring home another trophy to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that's exciting. Certainly, hopefully, there's a big crowd out there to show their support, and like you said, bring home that trophy. Fox 13 news anchor Linda Hurtado, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection.
Thank you, Garrett.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. This afternoon, Titusville police released body camera video and dashboard camera video from the night of a February shooting that killed 25-year-old Tramaria Charles. His mother finally was able to view that video yesterday in a meeting at the police department after she had been asking and pushing for its release for several months, as she said she wanted answers and to know more about what happened that night. The police department finally released that video after earlier this week, the state attorney's office, prosecutors, announced that the officers involved in that shooting were cleared, that their use of deadly force was lawful and justified. After that decision, police pledged today to publicly release that body camera video. They did release video. It was edited. Raw video still has not yet fully been released to us at last check. We have asked for that. But in a video statement that was released, Chief John Lau from the Titusville Police Department condemned the criticism of his officers over the past few months. He also pointed out some discrepancies in what some people told officers on scene versus what they had to say publicly after that night. And he also talked about the activity leading up to the shooting. Here's some of that video that they released earlier today.
I want to start by thanking the members of our community and citizens for their support, trust, and understanding during this time, while also notating that over the course of these past 3 or 4 months, a small group of vocal people have continually and verbally attacked me, our officers, members of our agency, and our city council over this incident to push their own crooked agenda. These attacks have taken place at council meetings, on social media, and anywhere else an audience could be found. Some of these individuals do not even reside in the city of Titusville, and they are only here to influence their own personal and political agendas. These groups have no firsthand knowledge of the case to include facts or actual evidence. It has all been speculation, as they have been screaming from the mountaintops that our officers did not act appropriately. These groups should be ashamed of their actions and the manner in which they are conducting themselves. As Chief of Police, and with support from our state attorney's office, I chose not to release any of the video evidence. The purpose was to allow the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the Brevard County State Attorney to fully investigate the incident, which includes collecting and reviewing all evidence before a determination could be made. This was done to protect the integrity of this investigation. In an abundance of transparency from the beginning, the decision was made to have an independent agency investigate this matter with full awareness that the result of the independent investigation would then be submitted to the state attorney's office for review. This investigation was extremely complex and took time to complete. With outside pressure to release the video prematurely, as the Chief of Police, I refused this external pressure, as the evidence and the integrity of this case were my only priority. On June 10th, 2025, the state attorney finalized their review of this incident. I am now in the position to share with everybody what actually took place that night, to include the prior criminal activity attached to this residence that initially brought our officers to 490 Robbins Avenue. The only person responsible for this critical incident is the person that broke the law that night and put our officers and citizens in harm's way. The video you are going to see, while extremely graphic, captures the dying declaration of Tramaria Charles after he dropped his firearm, fought with our officer, and rearmed himself with that firearm. After rearming himself, Tramaria was then shot by 2 of our officers. Charles' statement showed that he knew what he did was wrong, putting his own life in peril. Due to the repeated calls for service and the rise in brazen gun violence, our patrol and investigative teams worked together to address this issue involving 490 South Robbins Avenue. This address was the nucleus of all the calls where the reports of shots being fired. The following heat map shows an increase in our calls for service for the area in and around 490 South Robbins Avenue, where most of them were incidents of gun violence. This is over a 4-month period prior to our shooting, with the red area indicating a higher frequency of calls for service. As a result of these calls for service and investigative efforts, our Special Investigations Section was able to buy illegal drugs from 490 South Robbins Avenue and ultimately developed probable cause for a search warrant, which was served on February 5th, 2025, just 2 days before our officer-involved shooting. The main focus of this search warrant was for illegal drugs, but also to seize illegal guns in an attempt to stop any additional acts involving gun violence that would continue to place our citizens in harm's way. Despite the residence being just over 700 square feet, more than 15 individuals were in and around the house and were detained during the warrant service. Several of the detainees were juveniles. While the search warrant did produce some narcotics and a single handgun, investigators would later learn from witnesses and neighbors that just prior to the search warrant being served, a bucket of guns were removed from the residence and brought to a house around the corner on Palmetto Street. The criminal activity and guns being fired continued after the serving of this warrant. On February 7th, 2025, approximately 11 minutes before our officer-involved shooting, the Titusville Police Department received yet another complaint regarding shots being fired in the area of South Robbins Avenue. Officers had also developed information that there was going to be an open house party at that residence. With this information, the on-duty patrol sergeant met with his squad to develop a plan that was designed to prevent further acts of gun violence impacting our community. As a result, several uniformed patrol officers responded to the address where they established a perimeter around this house. As the perimeter was established, Officer 1 announced his presence and requested the homeowner to come outside so that he was able to explain the purpose of the police presence at this residence.
Titusville Police, Titusville Police. Hey, how you doing, ma'am? Titusville Police Department. We got our supervisor on scene. You mind stepping out of the house? Yeah.
Upon Officer 1's request, 2 occupants exited the house. Suddenly, a third subject, Trimeria Charles, ran through the front door and in doing so, tripped over the homeowner's walker, falling to the ground. During his fall, a handgun fell from Charles's waistband onto the walkway, directly in front of Officer 1. Officer 1 immediately yelled in a very loud and clear voice, "He has a gun, he has a gun," to alert the officers on scene. Charles continued his efforts to flee by swinging a closed fist at Officer 1 and then pushing Officer 1 in the chest. Trimeria changed his direction, turning back towards his firearm that he had dropped, picking up the firearm and continued to flee on foot. Charles was able to retrieve the gun with his left hand and ran in a northeastern direction directly towards the location of Officer 2 and his marked patrol vehicle. At the same time, Officer 2 was running towards Officer 1 to assist in what he now knew to be an armed assailant. Charles changed the direction he was running to a more eastern direction, and while doing so, quickly turned his body towards Officer 1 while changing the gun from his left hand to his right hand. As the series of events unfolded, both Officer 1 and Officer 2 discharged their weapon towards Charles as he was an armed threat. Officers continued to fire at Charles until he fell to the ground. It is tragic anytime there is loss of life. It doesn't really matter if it's justified or not. It is still tragic. Our officers consistently put their lives on the line to protect the lives of citizens, and while I am so proud of the professional way they handled themselves during this extremely violent encounter, I am deeply saddened that they were forced to take action to protect themselves and our community.
And in another segment of the video that we didn't play for you, you can hear about 16, I believe, was the number of shots that were fired. The Tremere Charles hit 10 times, according to the report that we had gotten previously from the investigators who had been looking into this and clearing eventually those officers. We are going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon. We are seeing reports and monitoring reports that Iran has targeted and launched missiles against Israel, targeting potentially Tel Aviv. That is reporting according to Fox News, and you can also find more coverage right now on Live Now by Fox if you'd like more coverage of that. Meanwhile, in Apopka today, a family speaking out after attorneys say a deportation threatening to tear their family apart. Esvin Juarez is the father of 4 children who are all U.S. citizens. He was detained at an immigration check-in and deported to Guatemala about 8 days later. According to attorneys, he was well into the process of receiving a U visa with a protected status for being the victim of a crime. Their daughter claims that a masked gunman had broken into their home, assaulted Esvin Juarez, and stole from them back in 2021. Rosemary Miranda was detained yesterday. This is the mother of this family. She was detained yesterday and is now facing deportation. We learned the couple originally entered the U.S. from Guatemala illegally more than 20 years ago. But now this family member is speaking at a rally today with support from lawmakers, from their attorneys, supporters as well there, asking for the deportations to be stayed in order to have an immigration hearing in front of a judge. The Juarez family says their case with ICE began back in 2010. I want to play for you as we heard from Beverly Juarez, who is the daughter of these ICE detainees, and also State Representative Ana Escamani, a Democrat from Orlando, who also spoke today.
My mom and my dad are Guatemalans who have been together for over 20 years. And as everyone knows, they did illegally enter the country over 20 years ago, and due to fear, they missed a court hearing decades ago, and as a result, they were ordered removed. And over the years, my family overcame that fear, and my dad sought to do things the the right and the lawful way. And in 2010, he began his case with ICE. They both began their case with ICE. And slowly and surely, they were able to jump through obstacles and jump through all types of barriers, language barriers, racial barriers, I'm sorry, I'm overwhelmed.
You're doing great.
Slowly, they were able to build up a life for their kids, a future. They were able to have a community behind them in the business. You know, they were able to own a home, and they were able to achieve what we know as the American dream. And over the years, my parents have complied every single time. I think I've said this many times. I remember growing up and going to their appointments with them, and you know, they never hid, they never ran away. And up until last year, we were able to receive another year granted to us by this ICE office to have our to be able to apply for the U visa application because my father was a victim of a crime assault in 2021 that unfortunately my brothers were able to witness, and they were able to see my father get thrown to the ground by 6 masked gunmen who snuck into my father's property where we kept the machinery and equipment for work. And my father had his life threatened, and he was thrown to the ground. He was hit on the head with a gun, and whenever he was on the ground, he tried to get back up to go see the kids, and they pushed him back down and threatened to shoot him in the head. And they shot at the ground, and one of the casings grazed his skin, and he had a big old bump on the back of his head for a while. So sadly, the kids were in the car and they were able to see everything, and by then they thought that my father was gone, and so they hid behind the seats, and one of the men was able to come inside and look for valuables, but fortunately they didn't see the kids. So after that, there was a lot of fear in our house. They were scared of leaving the house. They were scared to be in the house because they had stolen the wallets and they knew our address. And that was the basis of the U visa, which is a visa granted for victims of assault crimes, of people who have crimes committed against them and who have complied with law enforcement. And that is exactly what my father did. And so I reiterate, we came here last year at a regular check-in, and they were granted 1 more year to be able to process this paperwork to the best of my knowledge. And over the span of this year, they were able to acquire a bona fide determination on their U visa application. And under that determination, they get something called deferred action, which means that they can defer their deportation, but it is under the officer's discretion. And so what that means is that the officer can use their discretion in a favorable way and grant them extra time to wait for that visa to come in, or they can just say, we're going to deport you because we don't think that you should stay because you don't have these qualifications. And on that note, my father owned a business. He's a father of 4. I go to college. My father pays his taxes. He doesn't commit any crimes. And what doesn't make sense to me is that the officer had the chance to use her discretion in a favorable way, and she didn't. And we don't understand the reasoning why, when the only thing separating him from being an American and from being, you know, a hardworking person is just his status. And so what we want to say is the country right now has a chance to right this wrong, especially after the president yesterday said that they were considering not stopping the deportations for people who have been here for over 20 years. And he specifically mentioned agriculture, people in agriculture and people in hotels. And I'm here to tell you that my father is not in those fields, but he's been here over 20 years, and he's been working out under the sun, making concrete slabs, and he's been able to build this business for the last 20 years. And so there is a chance for the president to right this wrong, to bring back my father, and to stop my mother's deportation, because they are not criminals. They are pillars of the community.
I hear this rhetoric all the time. Take the right way. Do it the right way. I hate to break it to the American people, but there is no right way in this country that works. In fact, Beverly just described how her mom and her dad have been trying to do things the right way by following what ICE is telling them to do, by showing up to their appointments. Now we have situations around this country where officers are dismissing cases while agents wait outside masked to detain and deport them. Shame on this country. This will be a dark moment in our nation's history. And if you think it doesn't impact you, think again. Because if you care about affordability, guess what? It is our immigrant laborers every single day who keep products cheap, who do work with very little gratitude and very low pay. And I also want to push back.
That is some of the news conference earlier in Apopka. I want to go ahead and show you our live coverage from Live Now by Fox, and go ahead and listen in to them as they're continuing to follow these reports of missiles, dozens of missiles. Fox News reporting, according to Iranian media, that hundreds of missiles have been launched against Israel. Let's go ahead and listen into Live Now's coverage here.
The strikes of where Israel did to Iran, we are seeing this play out now with the retaliation efforts from Iran right now. And we again watching and waiting for more updates from the IDF and others. But yeah, this is what the skies look right now. Just over the skies right now in Israel. The ongoing military and intelligence operation raised the potential for an all-out war between the countries and propelled the region, already on edge, into even greater upheaval. Iran quickly retaliated by sending a swarm of drones at Israel, and the supreme leader warned of severe punishment. Iran had been censured by the UN's atomic watchdog a day earlier for not complying with obligations meant to prevent it from developing a nuclear weapon. Israel had long threatened such a strike and the American administrations had sought to prevent it, fearing it would ignite a wider conflict out in the region. So let's just listen to what we can hear from the ground right now as more of these defense systems are being put to work. All right, we have heard in the distance there those sirens continuing, and right now just seeing more of the defense systems go to work on these ballistic missile attacks that are happening from Iran. I want to now bring in our next guest to help break down what is happening with this Middle East crisis and the situation that continues to play out. So my next guest, please welcome Jonathan Ruhi from JINSA. It's always great to be with you. And this comes at a time when we are seeing the retaliation happen in real time. Right. It looks like we may have lost moments ago. Jonathan, if you can hear me, Jonathan Ruhi from Jinsa, thanks so much for, again, joining us. And this really comes at a time when there is such conflict, and we are seeing it being played out right now.
Yes, certainly. In some ways, this has felt like it's been in the works for decades, given Iran's long march to what until yesterday was the precipice of a nuclear weapons capability. And I think, this is but the latest and perhaps most remarkable and striking event so far of the post October 7th world, which has truly upended the region, America's role in it, and our ability to predict and understand what comes next. We're seeing this live feed now of what is Iran's third ballistic missile attack on Israel in just over a year, something that if you had spoken to anyone who follows the Middle East 2 years ago would have made their head spin. I think what we're seeing so far, these are just the first images coming in. Obviously, there's a lot more to sort through, but right now it looks like Iran has at least potentially achieved some serious hits on downtown Tel Aviv, which would continue the pattern of Iran improving its missile attacks with each successive strike on Israel, learning from the last one, adopting better tactics, using better weapons, and the like. But if you're Israel, they have made quite clear that dealing with Iran's nuclear weapons program and, frankly, the regime itself is an existential issue for the country. And, they're more than willing in the grand scheme of things to take these risks, bear the costs of what Iran can still throw at it. And I think this is but the opening exchange in what's going to be a very serious and very long campaign.
Yeah, and I think a lot of viewers want to know, okay, what happens next? Is there any way to kind of tame the way that you can go about these things, or will it just be a constant back and forth battle?
Obviously, the predictions are particularly hard to make about the future, but I think to the extent that we can sort of try to map out at least the next steps here, Israel has a very wide and expansive target set available to it in Iran now. Just in less than 24 hours, they've essentially decapitated a lot of the regime's military command and control, which then frees up the potential to do a lot of other things, go after the nuclear sites, go after Iran's remaining missile assets, and potentially now go after other core regime assets of any number of types, including key economic targets. Iran's ability to retaliate not only directly against Israel further, but around the Gulf as well, including U.S. bases there. And I think also in parallel, on the diplomatic front, we've seen President Trump come out and say, Iran, now's the time to make a deal to end your nuclear program. And if you don't, things will get a lot worse. That can mean a lot of things. I think most importantly, if you want Iran to end this war and not widen it and escalate it and not immediately go back and try to rebuild its nuclear program, you do need to have that, what we call a zero daylight policy between the United States and Israel.
And it's so interesting when we heard just yesterday from the strikes with Israel to Iran, and then Iran immediately saying that not only would Israel be put on notice, but the United States as well. I mean, those are comments that it seems like it would not work much for President Trump. He seems like he would not take that type of threat. What is your take?
Yeah, I think, Iran's whole calculus has been radically scrambled since last night. If we'd had this conversation 48 hours ago, I think I, like most observers in America or in the Middle East, would have said, Iran is doing what it's always done and has not really paid a significant price for, which is dragging out negotiations, not cooperating diplomatically or with inspectors, and basically believing that it's not going to, it's going to get off scot-free for a lot of that stuff. I think now Iran has to decide, well, first of all, what capabilities does it have left and what does it try to do with them? And then in addition to that, what potentially will President Trump bring to bear? I think right now, if you're Iran, they've threatened to lash out at U.S. forces and other U.S. assets around the region. That was before they took the massive losses they've taken in the last 24 hours and already now facing the prospect of a lot more punishment being dealt out at the hands of Israel. So I think there is a real potential that they will certainly keep taking shots at Israel with everything they've got. I do believe that. But I think whether they widen that further and try to make this a fully regional war, I think very much hinges on what signals they see coming from the United States, not only in the last 24 hours, but going forward.
All right. And then lastly, Jonathan, maybe explain to our viewers why we are seeing this happen in waves. It seems like, 20-minute increments right now. There's a lull, and then we'll see more activity in about 20 minutes. Explain the lull right now to our viewers here.
So based on Iran's strike last October, which featured exclusively ballistic missiles, basically the best Iran could throw at Israel at the time, and in strike packages that were meant specifically to overwhelm Israel's very good air defenses, the one choke point that Iran really faces is the number of launchers they can use at any given time. They have more missiles than they have launchers. That was certainly the case before Israel strikes in the last 24 hours. I'm sure that's put a strain on those number of launchers and the missile arsenals themselves. So Iran basically has to load up those launchers, fire as many as it can at one time to try to strain Israel's air defenses, and then rinse and repeat as many times as they can.
That's great insight right here. Let's show our viewers right now, IDF putting this out, showing that the civilians currently being targeted, and you can see that wide map right there. And, we should also note that just to put in perspective, I mean, Israel is the size of New Jersey, and continuing to get these types of strikes, it is going to be a moment here that we continue to hope for the very best and wait to see what is going to happen next. Obviously, we don't have that crystal ball here, but it was interesting, I thought, yesterday in the daytime, about 12 hours before the strikes to Iran, President Trump was asked in a news conference setting if he thought that strikes from Israel to Iran were imminent, and he agreed, and he said yes. So I thought that was really, really interesting. About 12 hours before those strikes, and then we heard from Iran yesterday, who said, and from the intelligence being put out there, that they were caught off guard.
Yes, I think we all were. I think from the Iranian perspective, again, they had gotten so used to basically feeling invincible, especially when they had the United States at the negotiating table. They know as long as the United States was talking, there would be no military threat. That was certainly the case under Obama and under Biden, and until a few days ago, looked like it was going to be the case under Trump as well. I think now the big question is, was Trump using that threat as leverage to try to convince Iran that, hey, yesterday is the 60-day deadline I gave you to agree to a deal. Now it's really time to put the screws on you. I think we'll find out in the coming days here, because I think very interestingly, Trump has said, the table, there's still a seat at the table for you if you want to come in earnest and do what I've been telling you to do, which is dismantle your nuclear program, or you can face more of what's been happening to you since last night.
And then in moments, we'll be taking our viewers to the UN Security Council meeting. That's where the emergency meeting is going to be taking place. And Jonathan, does anything come from these types of meetings, or is it just talking heads? Ooh, I want to go. Let's go out live right here. Let's look at these images that are playing out right now here over the skies of Israel.
Yeah, so it's again, we're all sort of reacting in real time, but you had mentioned, Israel's a small target. Iran famously called Israel a one-bomb country when they were starting to develop their nuclear weapons program. And so Iran's not just their nuclear capabilities, but again, these missile arsenals and now all the interceptors we're seeing go up, those are designed to take advantage of the fact that Israel has a small number of very high value targets because it is such a small country. It's got a small handful of air bases. These videos are being taken in the neighborhood of Israel's Kiryat, or its equivalent of the Pentagon. And also Tel Aviv is just one big target. It's half the country's population. And even Iran's less accurate and reliable missiles certainly it's a big enough target that they could reliably hit if they can overcome Israel's air defenses. And so, I think this is the best Iran can throw at Israel. I think it's very real. And I think the big question is how much more Iran has left. We'll wait to sift through the dust because a big part of the weight of its initial attack was to go after a lot of these exact capabilities, the launchers and missile silos that Iran does have.
And just we were seeing some playback there just moments ago, and we were just seeing those defense systems really strike up into the sky. And just give us some perspective. Where are all of these systems located? Because, it seems like it's such in a very residential area, but they're able to come at such a quick pace, I'm sorry.
Yes. So Israel is obviously very plays it close to the vest where they keep these systems, many of which are mobile and or are able to go out and intercept targets even before their terminal phase, which is what we just saw some of the missiles there when they're moving their fastest and are most maneuverable on their way in shortest time to target. So these systems are spread throughout the country. Some of them certainly are clustered around the core of Tel Aviv and those sensitive military sites I was talking about. Also, there's U.S.-backed interceptors, both, we previously in the last year's attacks, both on Israeli soil, but also in the waters surrounding the country. And then last night, I think very impressively, and this is something my organization has done a lot of work on, Iran's first attack that got off yesterday, which in the grand scheme of things is not that big a threat from Israel's perspective, was about 100 Shahed drones like the ones that Russia rains on Ukraine. And in order to shoot those down, Israel relies somewhat perhaps on Iron Dome, but also its fighter aircraft and cooperation under U.S. auspices with its Arab partners like Jordan and others. And I think that's a real important statement, both tactically and strategically.
Yeah, that is so true. And Jonathan, now I want to talk a little bit about closer to home here in the United States, because tomorrow expected to be a huge military parade out in D.C., and we already knew that there would be protests happening not only in D.C. but across the country. But let's talk about the security angle now for this as well. Fox News' Jennifer Griffin just putting this out here, saying that the Army parade tomorrow is also a nightmare security scenario for authorities following the increased threat from Iran following Israel's airstrikes here. So just how much more pressure for security-wise does this put on officials there, not only from threats from within, but from Iran as well?
Yeah, I think if you're Iran, the most direct threat you've ever had at the United States homeland, at our basic society and homeland, is the ability to do soft target attacks. We've certainly seen them do that through Hezbollah over the years, attempting to do so in Washington.
We've been listening into Live Now coverage this afternoon here on Florida Live as we continue to monitor and track that a major developing story out of Israel where it appears Iran retaliating and targeting Israel with potentially dozens, maybe hundreds of missiles, as we saw there. Thanks for joining us this afternoon on Florida Live. If you're watching us on Fox Local Orlando, we're going to continue with a Live Now.
bring us to more coverage and what to expect next. This is Joe Truzman with the FDD. Great to have you on, Joe. Great to be back here with you on Live Now from Fox. And just maybe for our viewers, tell us what you are thinking right now and your thoughts here on this hour.
Right. So always a pleasure to be on with you all. What we're seeing now is the expected response by Iran. Earlier today, we observed, at least there were reports of Iranian drones that were headed towards Israeli territory and were subsequently shot down. But now in the last, I'd say 30 minutes or so, we've observed ballistic missile fire from Iran towards Israeli territory. And there's a lot of video, especially social media video out there, showing strikes against areas in Israel, especially areas like Tel Aviv, for example. So we're seeing this right now. It's ongoing as we speak right now. But I think right now, more than anything, we're seeing just the beginning phases of an Iranian response against Israel. It's very similar, at least initially, it's very similar to what happened twice last year in April and in October, where again, Iran retaliated against Israel and fired ballistic missiles. Still early to figure out to see what damage has been caused, because this is so, just again, like I said, this started just about 30 minutes ago. So, but I do anticipate more strikes from Iran. Especially if Israel continues to hit Iranian military facilities and nuclear facilities.
And Joe, let's show you some of the content that you shared here. Some moving video right now. Maybe just to explain from what you took here.
Yeah. So this is just one of many videos, actually, of Iranian air defense activity that I've observed over the last few hours. As they attempt to down Israeli projectiles that are being fired at military and nuclear facilities. Also, there have been claims by Iranian media that they have shot down Israeli fighter jets, but